welcome to level 5 lockdown. Welcome back to my channel. I always feel like an idiot saying that. I don't know why, it just makes me like... Today's video, I thought it might be useful to a few people. So today's video is going to be about my favourite books. It'll get you off your phone or watching the TV, so it's a bit of a break from screens and news and social media and stuff, so it's a good escape for now, I think. So the kind of books I like books that aren't set in modern day, because I don't want to live here anymore. I like books set in the past, so like World War II, the 70s, the 60s. I love stuff set in like way back 1800s as well. And I know you're not meant to do this. I actually do judge a book by its cover. A lot of the time that is actually how I pick books, is if the cover looks good. These ones that I'm going to talk about, I would reread them like every year for the rest of my life. So the first, it's actually a series of books I'm going to talk about. It's not Harry Potter. I have read all those. So it's these ones here, these three, and then this is the fourth one. And they're by an author called Malorie Blackman. Fun fact, Stormzy said he loves these books, and he even mentions Malorie Blackman in one of the songs. It's set in a world where black people have all the privilege and white people are like the poor, if you want to call it, second class citizens. So like black people would have all the good jobs, they're the politicians and they make all the laws, and then white people would be like working class, they'd be maids and butlers to the black people. There's also a terrorist knot group. They're not trying to get equality, they hate crosses, so they want to get rid of them. Noughts Crosses is the first book, and it focuses on Callum and Seffi. Seffi is a black girl, and they call black people crosses and white people are called knots. So like knots as in zero, they're not worth anything. They know each other because Callum's mom worked as a cleaner for Seffi's family. So they kind of grew up together and they're really good friends. And Seffi's mom actually fired Callum's mom because she didn't want the kids to be close anymore. They still met up in secret as they got older. Callum is one of 5 or 6 knots selected to go to a cross school. So like a cross school would be like a private school. And on the first day when those 6 knots are going to school, there's massive protests outside. So it's very similar to America in like the 1950s and 60s. And this book is basically just Callum and Seffi and them going through their teenage years and realising that maybe we are different and that's why our moms didn't want us to be friends. Maybe we shouldn't be friends. So the second book, which is the one that I'm kind of halfway through at the minute, is Knife Edge. And this is like the same world, the same families, but different characters. One new character that it kind of focuses in on is Callum's brother Jude, and he's a bit older than Callum, and he is actually involved in the terrorist knots group. He has to like hide from the police, and he's setting up bombs and kidnapping crosses and stuff. Callum would have been very accepting of crosses and not see why there's a reason to separate the two groups, whereas Jude is completely like, no, knots are better, we're always treated really bad, we're not standing for this anymore. It's really well written and it's a good continuation on from the first book as well. The third book in the series is called Checkmate, and it focuses on kind of the next generation below Seffi and Callum and Jude. You get to see like, has the world changed at all? And the main character is Callie Rose, and she has a knot dad and a cross mom, and she feels like she doesn't fit in with knots because they say no, you're a cross, and then she doesn't fit in with crosses because they say no, you should be with knots. So neither community wants to accept her because she's half and half. So this book focuses on her specific struggles in the community and trying to fit in, and we get to see where she feels like she fits in most. Hint, she doesn't go down a like good path. Double Cross is the fourth book, and this follows Callie Rose again, and this time she has a boyfriend, Toby. So I think she's probably in her early 20s in this book. She's kind of pulled away from the bad road she went down in the third book, and she's trying to live kind of an honest life now in a world that she's still not accepted in either community. I haven't read this book in ages, so I can't remember exactly what happens, but I know I love all four of these books. The next book I'm going to talk about is The Kitchen House by Kathleen Grissom. So this is basically about an Irish orphan called Lavina, and she's adopted by a plantation owner in Virginia, but the plantation owner doesn't think she's good enough to live with his family in the big house. So he puts her out with all the black slaves that he has. So she grows up basically her whole life with the black community, and she works in the kitchen house with them. As she gets older, her adopted mom, one of the black women who works there, tries to push her out of that community because she knows she can't marry a black man, and she'd have to find a white man to marry. She will be able to go to school if she wants to. She doesn't want to see her skin colour. She wants to stay with her family, who she's known for her whole life. It has a bit of drama, a bit of romance, and obviously a lot of history as well. So the next book is called The Book Thief by Marcus Zuzak. This is a pretty well-known book. I'd say it came out definitely over 10 years ago. It's set in Germany in World War II, and the narrator of the book is actually Death. So it's a bit of a different view on war because you get to see what Death thinks about all these people dying and all the work he has to do because of the war. The main character it focuses on is Liesel, and she's about 9 or 10 when her mum and dad are taken away to a concentration camp. It was meant to be her and her brother going to a foster home, but on the journey there, her brother actually died. And when they bury her brother, she finds a book in the graveyard where they are, and I think it's called like the Gravedigger's Handbook, but she can't read, so she doesn't know what it is. She just takes it and brings it with her to her new house. Then when she gets to her new foster family, her dad actually starts teaching her how to read because he notices she has the book, but like she can't read it. As she gets older, she realizes kind of how much her foster family are doing to fight against the Nazis in the war, even though it's putting them in danger. I found the plot of this book really interesting, and I really like the way Death visits people around Liesel, and like he sees her every time he visits the people, and he knows her as the book thief. This is my Kindle here. The cover's a bit dirty. I thought when I got it, I'd find it weird like reading off a screen and not having the actual pages to flick through, but it's actually great because the screen lights up so you can read in the dark at nighttime or whatever, and it's really easy as well to download books. Like say if I heard about a book, I can just go and get it straight away. So the next book is called Burial Rites, and it's by Hannah Kent. It's set in, I think it's like the early 1800s in Iceland. So it's based on a true story where 3 people are accused and convicted of murder. They didn't really have prisons back then, so each of the criminals were sent with a family to live with until their execution date came up. Agnes is the main character in this story, and she's sent to live with a family, kind of a poor family on a farm, so they get paid for keeping her there. Nobody wanted to take her in because she is kind of seen as the worst of the 3 murderers. While she's there, she kind of has to work on the farm, and there's also a priest who's like assigned to her, and he has to try get her to confess before she's executed, because obviously then she might go to heaven or something like that. But he finds it really hard to get the actual story out of her and like why she did it, and gradually over time she tells bits of the story to the priest and the family listen in. It turns out like she might not be as evil as they had originally thought. I really like the setting of the book because I've never read a book that was set in Iceland before, and it also talks about certain Icelandic traditions which I would have never heard about. The story of the actual murder is really interesting as well, so I'd give that one a read if you can. The next book is another book I downloaded on my Kindle. It's American Dirt by Jeannie Cummins. The main character is called Lydia, and she lives in Acapulco, Mexico with her husband and her son Luca. She owns a bookstore and her husband is like a crime journalist. One day she's working in her bookstore and this man comes in and he's saying like, oh, I'm new to town. His name is Javier. He visits her a lot in the shop, so they become friends. Then one day Lydia's husband publishes a story about the new drug cartel in town, and specifically about the Jefe, or the boss of the cartel. As Lydia reads this, she notices stuff that's in the story that her friend Javier has told her in the bookshop. So she kind of makes the link that they're the same person and she's been talking to a cartel boss this whole time. Suddenly, Lydia and her son, they have to leave Mexico, like it's not safe for her family anymore. So they join in with all of the other people trying to get up and across the American border. Most of the story covers their journey up, and they have to go on La Bestia, so it's like a really, really fast, high-speed freight train. Obviously, it doesn't take people on it. Basically, the only way to get on the train is to find a bridge over the train line, and you have to jump as the train's going like whatever, 100 kilometers an hour, 200 kilometers an hour. She's afraid that Javier has hired someone to follow her and her son and kill them. I really like the story of this, and the ending is very good. And I love books that are set in places that don't speak English and they include sentences that aren't in English. If you went to school, specifically secondary school in Ireland, and you didn't have to read this, I don't know how you got away with that. So it's To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. It's set in Macomb, Alabama in the United States in the 1930s. And obviously at that time, there was a lot of segregation between the black community and the white community. A lot of prejudice towards the black community from the white community. The main characters are Jem and Scout, and their dad, Atticus Finch, who is like the best lawyer in town. Atticus decides to take on the challenge of defending a black man who was accused of raping a white woman. It's a challenging case because it would kind of be an automatic, he's obviously guilty, he's black kind of thing. It's good because it makes you reflect on how you think about other people and common stereotypes, and stereotypes are just so ridiculous because it's a thing or a trait about a large group of people. There's also a movie of this, it's in black and white, but it's really good as well. The next book, I think it only came out last year or the year before. It's called Where the Crawdads Sing, and it's by Delia Owens. So this is set in North Carolina in the 1950s and 60s. The main character is called Kaya Clark, and she is from a really, really poor family who live out in the middle of the swamp. Her mom abandons the family one day. Her dad tries his best for a few years, but he's kind of like, he's drunk all the time. He leaves, and her brothers and sisters are a bit older than her, so eventually they leave. So she's kind of left in the house by herself. The locals of the town near her call her Marsh Girl because they're like, she kind of lives off the marsh around her, and she doesn't go into town. She doesn't try and mix with everyone else. She won't go to school. When she grows up, so she's probably between 17 and 20, the like popular boy in town, Chase Andrews, is found murdered, and the police are kind of baffled because there's no real evidence at the scene. Again, this is similar to Kill a Mockingbird. They automatically assume it was her because she's the outsider and it's the easiest person to blame. Because she's lived for so long in the marsh and the swamp by herself, she knows everything about how nature works out there, all the animals, all the trees, the plants, and she uses this along with the help of one boy in town who is literally the only person who's ever been kind to her, to try convince people that she is harmless and that they shouldn't lock her up. It has a little bit of romance in it, and it's nice to see her progress from a child who can't read or write or anything into a grown-up who can fend for herself. The next book is this one here, and it's The Tattooist of Auschwitz. It's a really popular book. It is a true story. Lael is the main character, and he's a Jew from Slovakia, and he's transported to Auschwitz in 1942. He's really well educated, and when he gets there, the Nazis realise that he can speak, I think it's 6 or 7 different languages. So they decide to give him a very specific job. He actually gets a job as the tattooist who used to tattoo prisoners' numbers into their arms. Obviously, like, he doesn't want to do that job because it's a terrible job. A lot of Jews that are killed, their jewels and money and belongings and stuff are put into sheds that he has access to. So he starts taking that stuff and selling it for food so that he can feed himself and other prisoners. One day he's tattooing as normal and this woman comes up. Her name is Jita, and as soon as he sees her, he decides, this is the woman I'm marrying. I'm gonna get out of here and marry her, and then we're gonna live a normal life. So from then on, he's concentrating on keeping her as safe as possible, but also he can't let the guards find out that he's trying to take care of her, because if they find that out, they'll just kill her straight away just to make him unhappy. This is a really good story. Obviously it's sad because of where it's set and what happens. Also, just want to give a special mention, I'm not going to describe this book because I'm sure everyone has heard of it, Anne Frank's Diary. I reread it over the summer, and every time I read that I feel like there's parts of it that I don't remember, and I'm like, oh, I don't remember this happening. If you haven't read that, I really think you should. Let me know if you have any book recommendations. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, because I know a lot of people watch my videos and don't subscribe, but it literally takes 2 seconds to set up an account and subscribe, and it really helped me. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.